About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a friend's house around 1:30 in the morning. For context, we both live in a relatively suburban area, and the route I frequent when traveling between our houses is about a 15-minute drive. There is a lengthy stretch of road on this route that has few streetlights. Along this stretch is a storage facility and some other smaller industrial warehouses. While this road is usually heavily trafficked during the day, at night, it is quiet and dark with few cars and people around. I don't remember when I felt like I was being followed. It was an acute sensation that something was off. I was the only car on this road until suddenly I wasn't. Headlights appeared out of the darkness in my rearview mirror, seemingly out of nowhere, and they were close behind. I forced the feeling down. However, as I got closer to my house, that gnawing feeling of wrongness only grew worse. I turned into my neighborhood, and now, under the glow of streetlights, I saw the vehicle behind me was a U-Haul box truck. Weird, but not necessarily out of place. I decided to bypass my house out of an abundance of caution and to appease my rising feelings of unease. I made a loop around my block, and they were still there, right behind me. I was being followed. I decided I needed to get away from my neighborhood because there was no way I wanted whatever creep this was to know where I lived. I drove expeditiously toward one of the larger streets. The truck closed behind. At one point, the truck sped up and was driving alongside my car on the wrong side of the road. Turn after turn, up and down several streets. I didn't know what to do. By some coincidence, we were the only vehicles on the road through this ordeal. In my panic, I did, in hindsight, a not smart thing. I stopped in the middle of the street, rolled down my window, and tried to talk to the driver. The truck pulled up to a stop beside me, the passenger window down. I leaned forward and said hello, mainly because I didn't know what else to say. Even when terrified, I'm still awkward. The driver appeared to be alone, wearing a black jacket with the hood pulled up. I could only see their hooded silhouette against the streetlight behind them, not their face or any distinguishing features. They did not respond to my greeting, instead just turned and stared at me. I felt a ripple of fear, and that was it. I floored it and sped off to the closest public safety center I knew of. They continued to follow me until I pulled into the parking lot and parked in view where I thought there might be cameras. The truck bypassed the driveway, flipped a U-turn, and then was gone. I sat in that parking lot, shaking and crying for a good 10 minutes, then left back to my friend's house for fear the truck might still be driving around my neighborhood. The following day, I sent a note to U-Haul and our police department, but no one had ever followed up with me about what happened that night. While I was in a KFC branch, someone on Grindr with a blank profile messaged me while waiting for my food at the table. I shrugged it off. He didn't send me any pictures, just messages saying hi and asking if he could give me the best I would ever have. Seeing I was in a public place and not in the mood to be approached in such a manner, I did not reply and proceeded to eat my meal. After eating, I left the mall and waited for a ride to go home. It was dark at the time, so I had to be vigilant of my surroundings. While looking out on the road, the same guy messaged me and asked me where I was currently. I saw that his distance from me was only 70 meters away. This was getting a bit worse, so I closed the app immediately and proceeded to continue ignoring him. Around 5 minutes later, a guy stood beside me, trying to act unsuspicious, even though my gut feelings were telling me something was wrong. He looked like he was in his late 30s and a bit bigger than me in both height and weight. I started having some goosebumps while standing beside him. It only got worse when he tapped on my shoulder and asked if he could engage in inappropriate behavior. I froze, having no idea what to do. Then I suddenly punched him in the face when he started grabbing me inappropriately. I then pushed him away and ran as fast as I could. I saw him chasing me afterward. Luckily, a taxi drove nearby, and I rushed inside as fast as possible. I knew it was him because his Grindr profile told me he was only literally 1 meter away from me. I blocked the profile and logged out of the app. What I realized is I wasn't logged out at the time. Therefore, my location was exposed. My profile picture in the app was my face, which wasn't covered, meaning it was easy for me to be identified. Also, the location of the mall is poorly lit, surrounded by poorly illuminated areas. Worse, there weren't many people around, and it was dark, making it difficult for me to identify the man correctly to report him to the local authorities. For the weekend, I wanted to visit my boyfriend who lives 2 hours away, and I always go by train. I'm not easily spooked, but I always keep an eye out. 1 hour into the trip, around 8 p.m., I saw 2 men getting into the same train compartment as me. I was sitting in a 2-seat, and the seat next to me was empty. In front of me, there was a seat for 4 people, so 2 pairs of seats facing each other. The men came in being very loud, even though it was a silent compartment. But nobody said anything because they already seemed very suspicious from the moment they stepped onto the train, probably before they got in. They had their eyes fixated on me. They stepped in through the doors and sat in the seat in front of mine, the 4 seat. And from then on, they kept an eye on me, while discussing things with each other in a language I did not understand. Like every other girl, I get stared at frequently, especially when I wear my hair down. It normally makes me feel a bit awkward, but I never feel unsafe when this happens. Until yesterday, they were staring at me in every way possible through the chairs, standing up, sitting down, and bending over to get a good look through the reflection of the mirror. They kept looking at me, and then started discussing again. When I had 20 minutes of my trip left, a lot of people got out at one stop, leaving just me, them, and 1 other male. Then, the moment the doors were about to close, one of the creepy men started walking through the doors to check if people were coming in, and maybe to check if there was security. I don't know why he did it, but when he came back, he scanned the train to see how many people were still on there. From that moment on, they both sat in seats, facing me, and would not stop staring. At this point, I panicked and was stressed out. So, I slowly turned around to look behind the glass doors to see if there were more people there that could maybe help me. To my luck, there were more people there. I slowly and very softly put on my jacket. We still had more than 10 minutes left, and I kid you not even 2 minutes later, one of the men started getting dressed too. He took his purse and his jacket and kept looking at me and fixating on me while still discussing something with the other man. This was where I panicked. I had already let my friends know what was going on, and my boyfriend was already at the train stop where I was supposed to get out. Then I contemplated what the smartest thing to do was, because there is an emergency number on the train that you can call or text if you feel unsafe. But I had a gut feeling that this would not help me. So I got my bags, got up, and walked through the glass doors to the other compartment. I sat facing them so I could see what they were doing. They both got up, grabbed their bags, and started walking towards me. They were sitting closest to the exit, so there was no reason for them to take this route too. I rapidly started to talk to someone on the seats next to mine and asked if he could help me because I was getting followed and watched by 2 grown men. He said he also thought they were very suspicious and was getting scared of me. He asked me to sit next to him so he could keep me a little safer and distract the men or something. Then he distracted me a little, and asked me questions about my life. When the two creeps saw I got seated next to that man, they were already coming my way and were making their way through the doors of the compartment. There are glass doors, so we could see each other very clearly. I had not shown my fear, but I was shaking so uncontrollably that they must have seen how scared I was. The moment they got through that door, they saw me getting seated next to the other man. The creeps exchanged looks, looked at me, discussed something, looked at me again, turned around, and went the other way. They were walking to the exit of the train, where, again, there was a glass door, so we could still see each other. The whole time they were standing around the exit. They were looking at me with a very creepy and disturbed look on their faces. I describe it as, "You got away, but you won't be lucky next time." That's how it felt. The man I was sitting next to also got the hang of this and was calming me down. He told me he was not going to let me go to the train by myself and would wait with me until my boyfriend arrived. That was amazing, and I felt comforted. But then our stop came, and we walked to our side of the exit. And then came a realization. At the exit of the train, there were two other men with the same kind of looks as the two creeps. They talked the same language and acted weird too. These men were the men who the two creeps visited every few minutes. The men at the exit saw me and looked at me with a creepy look, but then the man who kept me safe made sure to them that he walked with me, and immediately they looked away. They also covered their faces with their hoods. The doors opened, and they nearly sprinted out of there, just like the other two creeps. Then the man who escorted me waited with me until we found my boyfriend, and then he went on with his day. We both could not thank him enough for keeping me safe. I thought I lived in a very safe country in Europe, but I think that as long as you're a young woman on your own, you will never be 100% safe while traveling or being alone. I hate thinking about what would have happened if I was not helped by the man in the other compartment. I wish I could have thanked him with gifts or a nice gesture, but I don't know his name and will probably never see him again. To the man who saved me, I thank you with all my heart.